y'all, it is Nicoletta Juliana. I am here. First off, I need to tell you a few things. I am not a YouTube or Instagram influencer like my geckos are what I usually show off, so I'm not good behind the camera typically. I'm going on like four, maybe this is my third cup of coffee, not four, which for me is kind of dangerous, but you have to see this cute gecko whisper. It's adorable. Anyways, I wish you could see my phone right now. It's like stacked with like a piece of cork and then some of those little like Pangea cups to get it in the right place for me to take this video, which to me is hilarious just because I don't do this, okay? So, but after a few messages I woke up to this morning, I realized that it's kind of important for me to get some information out to you guys because at this point I am in a season of life where I need to just get some things off my chest, be completely transparent and raw with all of you, and give you an update on where I'm at since we launched our soft skill research paper. A lot has happened in the last 6 months since that went out, and I really just want y'all to hear my heart and where I'm at as a breeder, where I'm at as a person, and kind of like the steps moving forward from our study. And I talk with my hands a lot. I'm Italian. So anyways, let's get to the point. I am super excited about this year. Myself and my good friend Dan Foley, who did the research paper with me, we have some really cool projects in the works. I need to get it out there that after we put our research paper out, there's a few things that happened that made me really discouraged about our community, our hobby. I'm a very science-minded person. It is important to me to know exactly what I'm doing, or at least have a direction of what I'm doing, where I'm going, and a purpose, a why, an intention behind why the heck am I even breeding geckos? And 5 years ago, I fell in love with a soft-scale crested gecko, Anthony Caponetto's line of animals, and I truly believe that I can credit his amazing animals to where I'm at today within my collection. However, with that being said, a few things have transpired recently that have kind of made me and my good friend Dan, who also did this research with me, he's a huge part of it, very just frustrated and at a point where it was like either we give up or we back off, and we kind of both chose to back off for a little bit. To give you a little bit more background, when we put our research out, we had a lot of people who were really thankful for the science and the grounded research that we put in there with proof, pictures, long-term synopsis of all of the things that we've kind of gathered, and we had different case studies that we were working with and reasons to why we came up with the results that we did. At no point were we trying to put it out there that we knew everything and that, you know, we were right and everyone needed to change their minds and all the things. Instead, we wanted to put the information out for those people who wanted to have a little bit more education, or at least a little bit of a different viewpoint on what could be super confusing and what has proven to be super confusing as the soft scale gene as a whole for the last 5 years since the definition was put out in the first place. With that being said, when our research went out, we were very confident in our results. We were confident in the inheritability as recessive when we see the scale splitting and separating the way that we did, and yet we still had some backlash and some questions as to what about the look of the soft scale and why is it not incomplete dominant, because it looks to me like there's a soft scale and a super soft scale, and the question of the look really was what it kept coming back to. And to be completely honest, some of these questions brought to our attention were really great. We had a lot of great discussions, and then there was a few big breeders who chose to just completely alienate us and make it about the fact that we wanted to target a specific group or a specific audience, which was never the case at any point whatsoever. Instead, our focus really was to just be transparent and honest with what we found. We went back and forth for 6 months as to whether or not we even let this information out. There's so many risks involved, so many things that could have gone wrong, and we personally did everything in our power to communicate and to be transparent from the very beginning. With that being said, you know, that group of people has continued to alienate us, and it is what it is. I still stand behind science. I stand behind having an intention and a why when you're working with gene-specific mutations within the crested gecko spectrum, any reptile, really, any animal, anything. When you're talking genetics, it needs to be backed by proof and science and have somewhat of consistent information to be able to then use that to sell an animal or mark an animal or whatever it is. And when our research went out, for a few months, people were asking great questions, and yet there's still a lot of people who didn't really want to identify it as recessive, which is totally fine, but it kind of left air for more confusion in a sense of feeling like maybe the soft scale term was used as more of a sales tactic than an actual real tag on an animal. And I know I'm guilty of it. Before I knew what I knew, I just wanted to mark things up because they had the soft scale gene, whatever that was, or super soft scale, and they look really cool. After our research went up, I was really hesitant to really mark anything up for any other reason as other than what the animal looks like. And Dan and I had a strong agreement with that. And after our research went out and people were still calling things soft scale, super soft scale, there was confusion. People were asking questions. They loved what we were saying, but then there was still more confusion. Him and I were both like, you know what? We're done. We're done labeling anything as soft scale or het soft scale. At this point, it doesn't really matter. Animals will speak for themselves, and we need to kind of come up with a game plan going forward, how we want to identify our collections, because we really, really, really believe in this gene where you see the splitting and the separation of the scales. And so basically what happened is we put out our second research paper, which we didn't put out publicly. We felt that we didn't want to cause any more drama or upsetting information or anything to anybody. So we both just put it on our story. Hey, if you want this PDF, come and grab it. And it's yours. You can do with it what you want, ask questions, use it in your collection. It's really whatever you make of it is what it is. And when that came out, we basically kind of just washed our hands of trying to seek out approval and instead just really focusing on why we're doing what we're doing and making the best possible animals that we can. Backing up a little bit, I will tell you, Anthony Caponetto, I have mad respect for him. I think he's done incredible things. I still think that he has some of the best animals on the market, and I have always respected him as a person. And my collection, a lot of it came from Anthony Caponetto, and so I feel very confident in his animals. However, he was the first person that got our soft scale research back in, I believe, September, October. And after a few weeks, he very much agreed with what we were saying. And, we were excited about that. It was okay that he never put out anything publicly because it wasn't about that. For us, it was about advancing science in this specific realm. And after we put out the second paper, which I'll explain to you here in a few, also went to AC. And what broke the straw on the camel's back, I think that's how you say it, for me was that AC is now labeling things differently according to our study. And our second study, we were trying to work through, hey, yes, we understand that you are seeing soft scale, but are you seeing the same gene that we proved? Or is it something different? So we proposed that, and this caused more drama too, because for some reason it's just the information going out to people that's maybe scientifically backed, maybe not. If it's not coming from a certain group of person, it's we're trying to target somebody. And that to me is very, very frustrating. We're in a community of people that we should all be supporting each other's goals, research. And if you have questions, ask questions. But it's hard to not get emotional when you put information out there and it's just deemed wrong because it's not the right person that it's coming from. And that's very frustrating. Because I respect everybody in this industry, and we have put a ton of work into this, more than Anthony Caponetto has in the last 5 years since he put that information out. And this is not a direct target at Anthony at all. Like I said, I respect him very, very much. However, it is frustrating when you're trying to educate people and give them information that you've gathered when you become a direct target yourself in trying to potentially mess up other people's sales or whatever it is. It really is just very confusing to me. And that's okay. I'm over that now. But basically, our second hypothesis that went out on the second paper a few months back that a lot of people have and got in their inbox when they messaged us after we posted it on our story. Basically, our hypothesis is, and still is, that the look of the soft scale gene that originated from AC is actually a form of hypo. Now, is it the same hypo that's hypo? We think so, but at the same time, it's not been proven one way or another. So we're working through that. But we truly believe that that look that people see and associate with that specific gene is more due to the fact of hypo at play than the actual separation and splitting of the scales that we proved out as a recessive mutation. With that being said, we decided, for our own collections, for our own collaborative work effort, Dan with Gecko Harmony and myself decided, you know what, we're done calling it soft scale because it doesn't make sense in our minds when this look is associated with soft scale. The definition is still out there outside of our research as a structural and a look, and it's just, it's confusing. So for the two of us, when we talk, we're not going to call it soft scale anymore. We're going to call it scatter scale because what's happening is the scales are scattering. They're splitting. The secondary scales are splitting, and then the primary scales are separating because of that. And so for us, it made sense in our mind as we're starting to track lineage going forward, like, we're not going to call it soft scale anymore. We're going to call it scatter scale, and we don't need anybody else to call it that, but for us to eliminate confusion, this is what we're calling it. And then it goes back to our theory on soft scale being a form of hypo that originated from AC's lines. And we have our own hypothesis on that gene specifically, but we have to separate them because people are getting confused. But what's even harder is that we have this demographic of people who are looking to us for specific information on soft scale, yet there's mixed definitions and mixed information out there all over the place that makes it really challenging to actually educate our consumers, and our consumers meaning Dan and myself, consumers, as to what we're actually putting out there. So we're okay, let's just market stuff as soft scale lines, hypo lines, all these things, even though we know what's specifically going on with the gene that we proved out. It's too confusing, and we don't want to continue to add confusion to this mess that's already been kind of created. So instead, the people that purchase from us, or the people that are invested in us and want to learn more about our research project, we're going to just call it this, and this is what's happening, and that's passed on recessively as we know right now. Again, we don't profess to know everything. We're still working on this. We're still going through the motions and making sure that we have everything, lined out. And then now addressing that going forward, how does this actual scatter scale that we call it contribute to other genetics and other morphs and different traits that animals are carrying? And how can we really truly tell you, what the point is? Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't produce nicer animals, who gives a crap? I don't. If, this scatter scale or the gene that Dan and I worked through doesn't add or contribute to anything on the gecko, whatever, it really doesn't matter. And so we've been working through a lot of that mentally and trying to navigate through it. And I truly believe this soft scale or hypo combined with the scatter scale or the scale splitting and separation that Dan and I have researched and proven out, the combination of those two is where you get your most dramatic looking animals that are just unreal. The ones that I'm attracted to, the one that Dan's attracted to, the soft scale that people are attracted to. When you combine that scatter, split scale, recessive with this amazing hypo across tangerine, lavender, all these different things, that's when you get these animals that are holy moly, that's amazing. And that's where you get your super look, or even some super soft scales, they have this, I would say, visual hypo attached to them with a look, but they don't have the scale separation. And then you add that to that animal and it's the next level. So for Dan and I, we're really excited about that, and that's how we've navigated it in our brains. What frustrated me and what got me to the point of making this video is the fact that now Anthony Caponetto on his site is calling the gene that we researched or that we proved out, whatever you want to call it, like showed to everybody, that I do fully believe originated from him, didn't come from us. Like, it's not like this scatter scale that we are calling it came from Nicolette and Dan. It did originate with AC. He's now calling it hairy line structure gene on his website, and in the description he says research has come out that this gene might be a structural thing, and what he's referring to is the gene that we discovered, this recessive gene mutation that changes the structure of the scales. Now, there's multiple genes that adjust scale structure, but specific to what we researched, it's now being called hairy line gene structure on his site, and that's how he's selling his animals. And then he's got soft scale and super soft scale still in that label. So again, going back to the hypo part of this, Anthony Caponetto did see our second research paper where we addressed that maybe the look, the soft scale and super soft scale look, is actually a form of hypo. And then what we found is actually something separate that needs to be disassociated with soft scale. And he did have that, and then he took that and was like, oh, I think that's probably correct. And then he's never said this to me. This is me assuming that his hairy lines are probably what we discovered, or he thinks they are, or whatever it is, because he's now putting that out there on his site, which is great. Like, I want what we discovered to like make sense to people. I want it to elevate your projects. I want it to be something that matters. But at the same time, when you put this much work and effort into something and you get backlash and people targeting you for the scientific backed information you put out, and then the originator just vaguely decides to put that out there now on his sales, like, it is very frustrating. And Anthony Caponetto, like, if you see this, I love you. I think you're amazing. I think this is, you are the OG and all the things that are good. But for myself and for Dan, like, I needed to get this transparency off my chest. I need you to know where we're headed with the projects and with our research, and get that out there so that I can move forward. This has been a mentally exhausting last couple of years, to be honest, but the last 6 months especially has been so mentally draining that I've wanted to give up multiple times, mainly just because I'm sick and tired of the ability of ignorance to blind people. And I want to get to a point for myself where I don't look at something as a fact without proof and without working through it on my own. And there are a lot of people out there that are super devoted to genetic information and really, really passionate about it and pride themselves in it. And I love that. I think that's where we should be headed. And I also am not going to ignore the fact that there has been a lot of information put out from Korea, from American breeders, from everyone out there that just claims something to be truth with very little backing on it, which has muddled and confused a lot of things. And I hope that by me being raw and transparent, like, you understand that I respect everybody in this hobby, and I'm so passionate about where I'm at and with my geckos and all my animals. I mean, I'm breeding Asian water monitors. I have a lot of really cool projects, Uroplatus. Like, I want to be able to empower my consumers to be able to take whatever it is that they love about my animals and then reproduce it and make it even better. But without knowing scientifically how we get to whatever point it is, like, it really is just a shot in the wind, and we contribute to this continued spectrum of like people just making subpar animals because they don't know. They look at a nice animal and they're like, well, I think we mix this with this, we get this, and then they don't. They get subpar animals, and there isn't true alignment with what's going on, and all of a sudden we drown the entire hobby with subpar animals because people are misguided and misled and want to ask questions but feel intimidated. And I am just kind of over it. I'm to the point where, like, I'm going to be very transparent and real with my consumers. And there's amazing breeders out there, like, that are doing the exact same thing I'm talking about. So please don't hear my heart in saying that there's not people doing that. But for me, specific to our research, what we're doing going forward, both Gecko Harmony, Dan, and myself, is going to be very straightforward in the most unconfusing, conventional way of directing you to the right information. With all of that being said, I know that was like a vomit of just like Nicoletta, and I thought I was going to get like emotional during this, but really truly it just comes down to like what matters and what I want to do with the information I have going forward. And I don't want to continue putting myself in this like place of like being afraid to communicate information because I don't want to be a direct target or be interpreted as someone who's starting drama or who is out to get somebody, because it has nothing to do with that. Like, my heart in this, and I know I can speak for my good friend Dan at Gecko Harmony, is to educate and empower everybody around me. Like, I am still what I would consider a new breeder, and I am learning every single day about everything. And there is a lot of traits and morphs and genetics that I know nothing about because I've focused so solely on this one specific gene since day one, that I have a lot to learn. And I am going to continue down that path of growth and learning, but I don't want to let the negativity in the community, the misinformation, the confusion, all of the things direct my heart and my passion for it anymore. And so going forward, this part 2 kind of study that you will see will be also available on myself and Dan's website. We are going to continue to pick it apart. We're going to continue to push forward and continue to put out more information regarding how it interacts with other things, how, you know, what we're finding. Is there an intermediary that we still haven't found yet? I mean, we still haven't. So, you know, safest bet right now is to breed it as a recessive mutation. We're still working through a lot of new babies coming up this year that will add even more information to what we didn't have for the last 2.5 years. And if information changes, like, I'm going to put it out there. I want everybody to understand this is like a work in progress for myself. And by calling it scatter scale, for me and for Dan, it's not about claiming it as our own line. It's about having a solid place to start from with as little confusion as possible, that has a true definition based off of research and time and preparation that will give us a direct starting point to move forward with the gene. Whatever everyone else does around us, you know, I think Anthony now is or Caponetto is now going to call it his hairy line gene structure. For us, we're going to call it scatter scale. That's what our research is backed by. Going forward, you know, the soft scale and super soft scale, that is still not necessarily, to me, very clear. I don't feel confident saying something's a soft scale and super soft scale. I will likely just say it comes from soft scale lines as I work through kind of like, is this hypo, is it whatever. And I know a lot of people are doing the same thing and love this gene as much as I do. So going forward, this is just going to clear the air, set up a new space for us. I want this to be super positive and exciting. I don't want this to be negative. I want to move forward in a positive light. I want to continue working on this and not feel like I'm trapped. And my heart has really been in that. It's either this or give up and move on to something else. And I don't think I'm wanting to do that. So myself and Dan have put a lot of energy and effort, tears, long conversations, sleepless nights, all the things into this. And, you know, it only gets better from here. So here's where I'm at. That's my raw truth. I would appreciate if y'all share this if you feel like it's necessary. If you don't, not a big deal. Again, this isn't about attention or whatever. It's just about me being transparent and raw with y'all as to where I'm at. So I appreciate you and your support and your love, and I hope that going forward you'll continue to see my work, my bloodlines, Dan's, in a positive light, that we're trying to just make the best animals possible. And I will be the first to tell you if this scatter scale makes nothing better and is pointless, because y'all need to know that too. Maybe, you know what, we're not sure. I mean, we know what we know, and our best animals have this gene combined with some other things. So we're hopeful and content and happy and super excited about this season, and want to eliminate as much confusion regarding our study as possible. And since Caponetto has decided to kind of put that out there, I think it's only fair for us to kind of have our own name to it, and the hard work that we did to be able to continue going forward to teach people about, you know, what it is that we're so passionate about. So I love you all. Thank you for paying attention to my very I guess there's no edits here. It's raw. I'm like behind my chameleon, or in front of my chameleon cage on my cell phone. I did do a little bit to myself to try and make this better. But I don't know about angles or any of those things. So I appreciate you just paying attention to the raw footage here. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, reach out to myself, reach out to Dan. We love y'all. We want to see this community continue to go forward and thrive. I think you are amazing, and it just should just get better from here. So thank y'all. Love y'all. Have a great day.